Buenas, buenas, buenas. I'm Vanessa, the host of Chicklet, a podcast where we unlock the power of stories by learning about ourselves through books. Each episode, I'll explore popular Chicklet themes and use them as a starting point for insightful conversations. And this is part 2 to the Rachel incident with my friend Priscilla.
Hello.
Woo!
Girl, if
Like,
you're not winning, I don't care. It is what it is. It is what it is. Like, I love to celebrate your successes.
Yeah.
But I'm not looking at anything else.
No, and like judging, like
get out of here.
Like my mom, she's like, "Oh, don't let your friends see the fort," because my nieces made a fort.
Girl,
so it literally looks like it looks psychotic, like it's crazy in there. She's like, "Don't let her look." I'm like, I promise she doesn't give a fuck.
No.
Like, why do you care? And if you saw it, you'd be like, "Yeah, kids live here." Like,
kids live here. Are you kidding?
Yeah. But it's like, to that same point, it's like, she's thinking that people are going to be like, oh, what's she writing? They don't care what you're writing, girl.
No.
They're just going to the park. They're walking their dog.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, to that point, she wanted this air of mystery, so she wanted to fall in love with the only English professor, and, like, that
and
he was tall.
He had married an ex-student.
Yes,
so she was him. Like, oh,
it
like,
could be me.
Yes, I'm next.
And, like, that's such a 20s thing to think. Can you imagine in our day and age being like, oh, that man's married? Me too.
Yeah, like...
let's have an affair. Like, how old are you?
And he's gonna leave his wife to come be with me. Like...
his wife and also his publisher. So, like, they're very entangled. Yeah. Like, he's married. He married his master's student, and then she became his publisher because he's an academic, so academics publish books. Like, can you imagine being like, you know what? I'm leaving all of my money and also my assets for this little 20-year-old girl that doesn't even talk to me.
Which, listen, some dudes might. Some dudes might, but like you're saying, she didn't even talk to them. They didn't have a real connection. No. She was just delusional, daydreaming, storytelling, making this up.
And honestly, she's so real for that. Like, that's totally me. Like, we're gonna get married, and I'm gonna write your name in my notebook, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, she's working at this bookstore, and her best friend, James, are now living together because she broke up with her boyfriend out of nowhere. He called her boring and fake because she was just a 20-year-old girl, and I can't.
She was drinking a lot, and he was like, "Oh, that's boring. Like, you need more depth," which is like,
I didn't have a personality at 20.
No, I didn't either.
Like, I'm like, I just came out of high school.
I'm a child.
My parents still live together. Like, I still live in my parents' house. Like, what kind of personality? And I think it's really funny because she was also talking about, she thought she was, like, such a great housewife and, like, that she'd keep a home because she did some dishwasher dishes and stuff. And I'm like, that's how I felt. Like, I thought I was so prepared for life because I've paid a bill and I've washed my own dishes, and it's just, like, not what it is. No. And so at that, she also had to develop her own personality that wasn't drinking and partying, which she did.
And leeching onto her gay best friend.
Yes, exactly.
Because that was her big personality. And that she didn't find herself until he went to New York.
Exactly.
Which he did in a fucked up way.
He totally messed with her. It was the worst.
But he was a kid too.
Exactly.
So we're not mad at him.
But after rereading the book, because I started rereading it a little bit this morning, he said... one of the first things they talk about is, like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I'm going to get out of here and go far away. And he said it, I'm like, yo, when people tell you who they are, believe them. Because he really said, I'm leaving. Yeah. And she was like, not without me. And he was like, I'm leaving. But you don't believe
people, if they were to say that sentence, like, oh, I'm leaving, like, New Jersey, let's say, I'm always like, I would have to believe them. Yeah. Because old me would not believe them. I'd be like, no, we can stay. You'll fall in love. We'll get married. We'll stay here. Yeah. It'll be fine. You're not going anywhere. But it's like, that's not fair. Like, if James wanted to leave and go to New York, you have to, like, let people do what they want.
Maybe not the best way for him to do it, but also, like, you can't blame him.
No, 100%.
That was his dream.
Yeah. And he just went about it wrong because, again, he's a kid. He was scared to tell her. Exactly. He didn't want to... And especially, he was leaving her to go be with the other girl, to be, like, new BFFs and, like, kind of leave her out.
Coincidentally, Sabrina.
Yeah, the original girl that he missed.
You know what? I think he's just always loved Sabrina. Yeah. And, like, he told her he was leaving, and he finally figured it out. Yeah. So, oh my gosh, he's so funny.
But before he left,
they were at this bookstore, and he was planning this beautiful...
She was
planning this beautiful event for Professor Byrne, because she wanted to impress him, and he was going to fall in love with her and leave his wife. Because
he didn't want this party.
He wrote a history book about the history of Ireland during the famine, and it still wasn't a popular belief. Like, people were like, who cares about the famine? Like, they weren't in that space yet. And so no one showed up. It was like 20 of his own friends, And she was like, he's gonna love it so much, and he's gonna be so proud. And
James also like went into that daydream too, and he jumped on the bandwagon, and they were like, "We're gonna make this happen."
Like
right?
you do.
Yeah.
When your friend is like, "Oh, I'm gonna jump off a bridge," we're like, "Oh my god, we're gonna jump off this bridge. We're gonna have parachutes. They're gonna be pink." Like you just do that. Yes. You like cycle with your friends, and it's like a shared delusion, and I love it so much.
Yes.
And in the end, it was so awkward because, of course it's awkward. Like, his publisher's there, his wife is there, and now she's like, oh my god, she's gonna know that we're flirting. Never spoken to this man. And she's like, oh my god. She meets his wife. She's like this beautiful, dark Victorian lady with like egg eyes. I think that's hilarious that she called her egg eyes. Yeah. Because I guess her eyes were just like a little bit open and like sad. It's like the one thing that sticks out to me about Dee Dee is that she's got egg eyes. And she's cleaning up and she doesn't see James, her friend, anymore. And so she goes to the back of the stock room, and spoiler alert, he's making out with Dr. Byrne, her crush.
The professor. And
she's just like shook. Like, it's just such a weird shock. Even to me, I was like, did I read that? Like, what's going on? And like, at this point, not only has James confirmed and reconfirmed and affirmed that he was not gay, but also in the thought process of Rachel, she's like, he's just advanced. He's just ahead of the times. Like, he's just a person. So we are all convinced of this. So it's like as much of a shock to the reader as it is to her that they're just like kissing in the back. And then like it all kind of just spirals from there.
And I don't think she was mad at them.
No, she was just like, damn, that's a really passionate kiss. Like, she was like, that's such a lovely embrace.
Yeah, which I think like speaks to how much she loves James.
Yes.
Because I feel like if it was a girl, if her girlfriend, like a friend of her that's a girl, was making out with the professor, she would be mad at her friend. Yeah. But because he was gay, now confirming, or at least bi, and kissing the professor, it's almost like,
should I be mad?
And maybe even closer to him a little bit. It's like, oh, now I see him. Now I know him a little bit.
Exactly.
I don't know.
And I think it's just, I think she was saying, she's like, I wasn't used to the sight of, like, James being gay. Yeah. But I was definitely used to my friends making out with my crushes because she was such a tall girl. She describes herself as frumpy and, like, all of these different things. So it's just, like, the low confidence. Yeah. Where you're like, it's okay. But
like, my friends making out with my crush,
Like, it's fine. But, like, at 40, if somebody did that, you'd be like, we are not in a friendship anymore.
What the fuck are you doing?
Like, we're done.
Like, you're not a child. You know I like him. What the fuck are you doing?
What's going on here? None of this would have happened if they were any other age. I think that's the point of the book, right? But then it devolves into now Dr. Byrne's coming over to their shared apartment, and they're, like, doing stuff next door, and she, like, hears it, and he, like, knows she lives there, and, like, it's causing her all this, like, weird anxiety because it's just weird. Like, she's got to see him in class.
And he's married. Yeah. To a woman. So it's like, you're keeping a secret from your wife, and you're keeping a secret that you're gay. And my best friend, did he come out? I guess he came out, like, officially. He was like, yeah, I'm gay, or something after that. But it's like, it's just, like, a very heavy dynamic to be a part of as a 20-year-old. Yes. With that being said, I feel like if she were more of an adult, I don't feel like it would be that much of, like, an issue. Like, can you imagine if you kind of knew that, like, your coworker, let's say, was gay and keeping a secret from his wife? Like, I feel like we could have a little bit more compassion and more understanding of, like, how fucked up to be in that situation, that he's living, like, a lie. Yeah. You know, and how hard that would be, that it's almost like, none of my business, bitch, like... Yeah. Also, but I guess it's her house, too, so it's, like, that extra, like, intimate.
It's, like, in the same vein of that, I think that if we were, like, in this age experiencing that, I don't think I'd be able to hang out with them anymore. Yeah. Because I would feel wrong, and I don't like to feel wrong. Yeah. And, like, me as a person, like, I lead with my heart a lot. And so, like, with that comes a lot of emotions. And, like, I would feel so terrible for his wife. Yeah. So terrible for, like, everything. And, like, I'd feel so terrible for him that I wouldn't even want to look at him. I'd be like, please, like, you need to live your truth. Like, I don't know. So I feel like at this age, I wouldn't be able to associate with them. Not because I'm, like, judging your situation, because I feel so bad.
Like, and you can't participate
in this lie.
And it's, like, your house. Yeah. It's, like, your
It's like, you want me to lie to myself because this is not who I am as a person. You know? So.
And, like, also understanding how fucking hard to be in that situation. Like, that's so shitty.
It is. It's so horrible. Like, I feel so bad for him.
Of course.
The whole time.
You wish he could come out, but, like, you get it, too.
Yeah. Especially
he's married.
In the age. Yep, exactly.
And their age. It's, their like, age. Not appropriate. Like, you know, not acceptable, I guess, for during that time. So it's, like...
Yep.
It's terrible.
It's really bad.
And then, how did they get to the Rachel incident? Because I thought that the Rachel incident was, like, her life was the incident.
Yeah.
Until...
the actual Rachel incident.
The real Rachel incident.
So, long story short... God, that's hilarious. Long story short, she starts working for Deanie because she's just awkward, and, like, she was like, I would love a job. And she was like, okay, like, I don't have any positions open. So she blackmails her professor because she's failing, but not because of what's happening to her and, like, James and the professor being there. She has to tell her parents that she's failing her classes because she's been under emotional duress. But it's actually because she's just been drinking. Yeah. And because she meets James Carey. She meets a second James. Yeah. His name is James Carey, and he's, like, her love interest. And when they meet, it's really funny, actually, how codependent they are. And enmeshed is that when she meets James Carey, she goes, I've already got one of those, thank you. Like, she doesn't want anybody else in her life. And I think that's, like, I love that part that they have the same name, because it's, like, that's something that would happen in life. That would never happen in a book. Like, you curate the names and, like, this name means lightning, and, like, all of those things. Like, it would never be, like... this name, he's also James. Yeah.
But then she calls him Carey the whole time.
She calls him she changes his name because she's like, already got a James, thank you.
Which is so childish, and so it just, like, highlights how, like, childish she is.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. And, like, you don't even think of, like, all the naivety, you know, the naive thought processes. You're like, I don't care, like, that's not your name. Like, I have a James. Like, don't worry about it. And so... they're on and off, and so she's emotional and, like, not going to classes and drinking a lot, and he doesn't like that she's always drinking, and, like, they're always fighting, and then Dr. Byrne is also there, so it's just, like, a lot of different pressures that are on her, and when she goes to graduate, she can't, and so she has to lie to her parents and be like, I just can't do it anymore. So she blackmails her professor and says, I've been so emotional because you've been in my house, not the truth, that you've been in my house that I can't even do my work. And, like, that's such a teenage thing to do.
But really, and in that conversation, by the end of it, she's like, sorry, me and my boyfriend broke up.
Yep.
Like, in that same conversation. So it's like, that's such a childish thing to do, too.
Everything's so childish.
It's so stupid, but, like, you're enjoying it the whole time.
But I'm also like, I get it. Like, that's so something I would do.
So relatable. Yeah.
Like, there's not one person that would not scapegoat if they could, if they were failing a college class that your parents were paying for during the recession.
Yeah.
That you'd be like, oh, I messed up. Like, you'd be like, no, it was because literally anything else.
You're
like,
just trying to see what you can get away with. So he like, puts in a good word for her and, like, gets her an extension, I think, for an essay or something. And
gets her an extension, gets her an internship with his wife's publishing company so that her parents feel good about, like, her graduating. She gets to graduate on time. He helps her write all of her essays, proofreads them all. She's not, at this point, she's not the best writer, and he tells her that, so he says, you know, you really should concentrate on developing yourself, like, you're wasting your talent. Yeah. And, like, it comes from a place of love, but I'm also like, come on, dude. Yeah. Get out of here, Byrne. Like, what are you talking about right now? Yeah. You can't come at me and be a mentor when you just, like, you're doing all this stuff. Yeah. And, like, you know you're wrong because you have to be coming from a place of guilt if you're willing to do all of that for me. And so his wife thinks it's weird. Like, Deanie expresses that this is weird, but it is what it is. Like,
why is he helping you?
Yeah.
Why is he getting you an internship?
Yep, exactly.
And she invites her to a dinner.
Yes, so she invites her to a dinner, and at the same time that she invites her to the dinner, she had gone through his emails and seen all of this interaction with, like, you owe me. I need you to fix up these deadlines and help me with my reports and help me. She had just seen it. So she invites her to the dinner and, like, she's like...
And she saw the receipts.
Oh, yes.
The
wine and cheese.
The wine and cheese getting delivered to her address. Yep. So when Deanie, earlier in the week, that's also, I think, what did it, was when she dropped, when Deanie, his wife, dropped Rachel off at her home, she saw her address, and she was like, this is where the wine and cheese has been delivered.
Mm-hmm. And she put 2 and 2 together, and it's just, like, so, it's, like, pure comedy, honestly, because it's, like, she's working with the assumption that, like,
He's straight,
first of all, and that this girl's a girl in his class, and, like, they're being so egregious and obnoxious about it, like, get her the internship, get her the job, get her this, invite her to dinner, and now when you drop her off,
bright, she has
so
a future,
bright. Yeah, he's always talking positively about her, because he actually does believe in her, but it's a little misplaced.
Yeah.
And now she sees where she lives, and she's like, girl,
2 + 2 = 4. My husband's cheating on me with Rachel.
Because that's what he did with me.
Yeah.
And, like, I was a student, and, like, you know, this is what we went through.
Yeah.
So I feel so bad for in that moment, all the things that she would have been, like, thinking and feeling and expressing, and, like, at this point, we don't know it. But Deanie and Byrne had been trying for a child, and they had had a couple of miscarriages, unfortunately, and so this was a really emotional time for the couple as a couple.
Yeah.
And so for this to be on top of that is, like, so stereotypical, like, man under pressure, but it's so much more than that, you know? 100%. And so I felt so bad for her in this moment. I was like, oh my God, Deanie. I can't even imagine as a woman, like, what your mind is going through right now.
So she confronts Rachel.
Yeah.
At the dinner.
In the worst way. Actually, hold on, because that's, like, it's, like, my trauma part, where I was like, you could feel the awkward.
Yes.
In the whole, like, through the page, you were just like, oh my God, this is so cringy. This is horrible. Like, I don't even want to read it. She goes into the dinner party, and the person that greets is like, oh, like, there's no seat for you. Like, they literally put place cards out, and there was no chair for Rachel. So the doctor goes upstairs and, like, brings his desk chair, and she's a big girl, so now she's sitting across, like, higher than everyone, and Deanie is, like, smashing her plate, and, like, she cuts her fish in half to give it to her, but, like, in a mean way or something like that. And then everybody knows in the party.
Yeah.
Because everybody's kind of, like, awkward, and she had just yelled about it.
And Rachel's like, what am I missing here? Like, she felt
no
like,
idea.
what happened, and what did I miss? Because she was like, I don't understand. And she's also not, like, sleeping with Dr. Byrne. So it's like, she has,
even
like,
worse.
No idea what could be happening.
She has no guilty conscience.
No.
Like, she's not even thinking about it.
No.
And she blows up at Rachel and says, you're sleeping with my husband. You have the audacity to come to my dinner party and pretend like nothing's wrong. So Rachel hides in the bathroom, and, like, she's, like, yelling at her, and she's like, I'm just gonna leave, and, like, all of these obscenities and blah, 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 blah. All this. The same time that she figures this out, does she leave and go home? Or
I think
is
she's
she
about
already
to...
pregnant at that point?
She's already pregnant at that point.
Yes.
She's already pregnant, but she's pregnant with her boyfriend, James Cleary? What's his name?
Devlin.
No. Devlin is the best friend! Carrie! Devlin is the best friend. See, now we know.
We figured it out. Oh my God. I was like, Devlin.
James Devlin is the best friend.
Oh my God. It was like a deep core memory unlocked.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
But no, at that point, she's already pregnant with James Carey's, her boyfriend's, baby.
Yes.
And she had been trying to get an abortion, but in Ireland it was illegal, so they had to save a lot of money, or the money that they had saved to get a new apartment, her and her best friend James, they were going to use all that money, like half of it is James's money, but he's like, no, we're using it to go get us both flights, get us a hotel room, get you the procedure, and also stay to, like, recuperate for, like, a day or so, and take the flight, like, back.
And that was, like, $2,500, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
like,
which
$2,500 back then is
a
like
lot.
A lot.
Like $5,000 now.
At least.
Because everything has, like, doubled.
Exactly.
So it was like $5,000 back then, which is a lot of fucking money.
It is a lot of money. And also, I think she was talking about the irony, because she used to volunteer these women in abortion centers and, like, help them get abortion services in London, which, if you're not familiar, you can take a train to the plane, and then the plane to go out, and that should take you a day's trip. So she was so familiar with this route because she helped so many women go and do this, like, as a volunteer for an abortion center services. And now she's like, I gotta go do this. Like, I know exactly how much it costs. I know exactly what the route is, and I know exactly what's gonna happen. And so Deanie's storming at her and, like, yelling at her, and she was like, you know what? You want me to be the bad guy? I'm gonna sink into this position right now because I need this. This is convenient in the worst way. Yeah. She tells Deanie that she's pregnant with her husband's baby.
And she needs, like, $2,000.
Yes.
She's like, oh, and give me $2,000 and you'll never see me again.
Yes. And
it works for him, right? Because there's, you know, like, she already knows that he's cheating on her, but we don't need to add on the fact that he's gay and he's been cheating on him with James. Yes. So he's like, oh, perfect.
He's like, $2,000 and this will go away? Because, first of all, they both know they've never slept with each other.
Yeah, of course.
They both know that this would never happen. Yeah. But all Deanie can think of is, this man went and knocked up a student when we can't have our own child. That must have been so horrible for her. And she was like, fine, I'll pay you. And she literally just gave her money.
Yes.
She wrote her a check, and she said, I never want to see you again.
And then she did. Rachel did. She went and she got the abortion.
No.
Oh, no.
No, actually, hold on. So, the day of...
Yes, the day that they were going to go.
The day they were going to go. And that's definitely a little... it's a little sensitive, but she describes herself having a miscarriage. Yeah. And it was like, once again, one of those life things where it's like, of course it would happen that way.
Like, after, like, doing that to them and, like, extorting them, essentially, and using, you know, her position to, like, get what she needed, after that, it's like, oh, and then she had, like, the miscarriage. Like, that's, like, life.
It is very life. I feel like all of it is so, like, of course it would happen that way. Like, that's because truth is stranger than fiction sometimes. And it really is like that in this book. And so that is the Rachel incident where this whole dinner party gets blown up. This whole miscommunication / misunderstanding happens, and it all works out for everyone in the worst way.
Literally.
Because not only is Rachel now going through this horrible thing with her body, Deanie is now experiencing all of these emotions that I can't even imagine. Like, all I could think of in the back of my mind was Deanie and how she took this girl in, she gave her advice, she hooked her up with all these jobs, gave her a great glowing recommendation just to find out that this is what was happening. This is what was happening between
But to her, that's what was happening.
Exactly. In her experience, this is probably the worst thing that could happen to her.
You kind of, like, flash back because now where Rachel is 40 and she has her newborn baby with James Carey. They reconnect, they get together, they get married, they grow together, and he's like, no, you have to call me James because, like, now we're different people. Like, he's a doctor now, too, where before he was, like, a fuck up. So it's like, now they're both so different, they've gone through life, and they were separated for so long. He's like, no, you have to call me James, like, and be us. So they get married, she gets pregnant, she has the baby, and Deanie reaches out, and she's like, I need to talk to you.
Yep. And I think it's because they saw her in an interview or something like that with a baby.
And she was talking about abortions.
Yes.
And stuff like that. And Deanie was like, oh, did our situation, like, cause you to write that?
Exactly.
And Rachel was like, no, like, it didn't. It didn't. It hasn't. And, like, Rachel's like, bitch, it has nothing. You have no idea. You have no idea what went on, Deanie.
You have no idea. And it's like, I love that you said that because it really is, like, so crazy that you never know somebody's life. You know what I mean?
Even when you think you know, like, Deanie, she thinks that is what happened.
And it never happened. And, like, when we were talking about James...
Devlin or Carey?
James Carey. In the beginning, she just says, my husband, my husband, my husband. And then in the middle, she starts saying James. And we're like, what? Which James? Like, it's a scandal. And then... afterwards, we realize that it's James Carey. We're like, oh, that's so sweet. And then she starts talking about how they reconnect and, like, how he was a doctor. And she didn't even know that he was going to be a doctor. Like, she calls him a screw-up and all that, but he was in school during that whole time. And it's like, that's such a kid thing where it's like, he's like, he works at Apple or whatever, like, and we drink all night. It's like, no, like, this person has goals, careers, problems. Like, he had such big problems with his family, and, like, he takes care of his mother, and, like, she didn't know any of that. And, like, they dated on and off for, like, 4 years.
She had no clue.
Literally. She was like, he was a great lad. Like, that literally was how she had reduced him.
Yes.
And how, like, we tend to do that because we're so concerned with ourselves in our 20s where we're like, no one else matters. It's just me. And, like, at that point, Deanie had also done that. She's like, this is the story I created. Yeah. You know?
But I think now that they're older, I think Deanie knows because she was like, you know, her husband, Dr. Byrne, he had talked about Rachel so positively so often that I think that was the point that she made. She was like, if you guys were having an affair, why was he always, like, talking so highly of you? Because if he was cheating on me with you, why would he be throwing it in my face? And she was like, so I need to know what happened. And this is where I don't like it. Why didn't she tell her?
I think that she did.
She said that it wasn't her story to tell.
Well, at the end of it, though.
Okay.
So, okay.
Because you've read it 3 times now. Going on number 4, right?
Going on number 4. I love this book. But at the end of it, she starts the way she ends the book the way she started it, which was like, I have a friend named James Devlin. And it kind of alludes to her being like, this is the Rachel incident is the last chapter of my 20s that I've never closed. I've gotten closure for my relationship with James and how toxic it was, and like, I'm so proud of him, good for him. Yeah. And like, I've gotten closure, like, gay rights are here, and I got that closure for my friend. We have abortion rights, like, that part is closed. I have my baby, I wasn't a mess up, I have my columnist, my husband, my this and that. The Rachel incident was really the only thing that she could never
put behind her. Yeah.
Yes. And so at the end of it, when she really starts saying, she starts the line with, I have a friend named James Devlin, in my mind, I'm like, she's going to tell her. She's going to tell her everything.
But was it a column that she was writing or an email?
No, it was, I think she was talking to Deanie. I gotta go.
Yeah, pull it up. And honestly, through talking to you, I feel like when I read books, I feel like I, like, miss a lot.
Because it's so easy to. You know what I mean? That's why I read it, like, 3 or 4 times. I was like, hold on. The first time I listened to it, I was like, I missed something.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I feel like that's where I'm at. Yeah. Where I'm like, wait.
Now that I went back, I was like, oh. Like, I couldn't remember. Okay. So here she's talking about, she says, Rachel, please. Mm-hmm. She wants me to volunteer information on the Rachel incident. The idea of being a figure in their lives the same way they put phantoms into mine. The receipts, they were at their house, blah, 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 blah. I can't tell you that, she said. It's not my story. I write down his name and his email address. I know about making things work, too. I say the same sentence that I've been saying for years now, each time with more pride. I tear the piece of paper from my notepad and fold it into a square. My best friend is called James Devlin, I said, sliding the piece of paper to her, and he's a writer who lives in New York. And then it ends.
Okay, so then she told her.
So to me, it makes it feel like she's saying, it's not my story.
But here's the person whose story it is, so
go talk to him.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean?
So I'm happy about that.
Me too, because I'm like, it's the truth. And it feels like she's finally holding him accountable. Yeah. Because this whole shitstorm, it's not the whole shitstorm, but definitely that part of it was on him. Yes. And so, like, that's such a big part of, like, asserting your boundaries is, like, giving people back, like, what's theirs.
Yes, and, like, passing the baton. Like, this shit is yours. Like, exactly. You take it. Like, she has been holding that pain for so long. Yes. That it's like, oh, you want to know? Talk to James. Like, that's so good. And she's an adult. Yeah. So it's like a coming of age thing. Like, now she's an adult.
What's James gonna do? Be mad? Like, no. Like, he probably is going to want to know. And the whole point of this is because her husband's in a coma. He's about to pass away from this, like, horrible disease that they went swimming in, like, a river in Nicaragua or something like that, and they were like, he got this, like, brain-eating disease. It's so life. Yeah. Where it's like, you never know what the heck's gonna happen to you and how it's gonna happen to you. And so now she's, like, begging her for information because she's like, I need to know what happened. Like, it doesn't feel right. Why was he talking about you so much? And she was like, you want closure? Me too. Talk to him. And that was her way of, like, closing that chapter and, like, really coming into her own. And, like, I love that her baby is there because it's, like, that's her new life. Yeah. You know? And, like, that's the new way she's going to proceed. And now Deanie has her way into her new life.
Yeah. You know? With the truth.
Exactly.
Damn, what a good book.
Right? It's just, like, such a good book for no reason.
Yeah, literally. And you know what's funny is that my good friend, I don't know if you always see, I always post her, Life with Megan B.
Yeah.
She did not like the book.
That's fine.
I was like, how? No, I know.
You know what I mean? It's
no,
like,
but I feel like I'm a super, like, melancholy person in general. So this being so, like, almost flat a little bit, where it's like, you said no plot, it's just, like, characters and, like, Rachel. It's, like, this other thing, kind of, where it's, like, for me, this was on brand.
Yep.
Like, I loved it.
Yep.
So
I loved it so much. Yeah. It was literally, like, watching, if you've ever watched, like, an Irish, like, Father Brown or something like that, they're not doing anything. No. They're just, like, vibing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's just, like, such a chill way to exist where you're just like, I'm gonna go hang out with my friends when you pick up a book. Yeah. And so, like, I really love that part of it. So, like, it isn't for everyone. It's very character-driven. I don't think I've ever read a book like that. I've watched shows like that, but I've never read a book like that.
You already know.
It's traumatizing. But it's, like, the same way where you fall in love with the people that you're with, that you feel so horrible about everything that happens to them. And, like, at this point, you feel bad for Byrne because he's dying and he never got to fulfill his life open and free the way he's wanted to. You feel bad for Deanie because now she's got to reconcile all of these years that they've been married, and, like, she changed. When they first got married, she didn't want to change her last name because she's being avant-garde and, like, she's being feminist, and, like, so she keeps her last name Byrne Harrington. And after the Rachel incident, she changes it to Byrne because she feels like maybe he didn't love me. Like, maybe it was me. Like, I didn't pour myself into him. And, like, what an adult, like, what a woman thing to do, or what a person thing to do, that when you get slighted, you push yourself more into that relationship, right? Yeah. So, she's hurt. James is hurt because now he was in love with that man. Yeah. And he completely cut him off. Yeah. They never talked to each other again, and he was, like, in a wreck, and he went into a spiral. And, of course, Rachel and James Carey was also slighted because she was so wrapped up in James Devlin that she didn't even have a minute to think about who she was or developing their relationship. She didn't even know he was going to be a doctor. Which is
also, like you said, like, now she's being with her child and with James Carey, not so much James, her best friend. Yeah. It's, like, that is, like, the nail in the coffin. Like, that's the last... Yep. That's it. It's done, like, it's all behind her. She can, like, move on freely now.
Exactly. And so like, it's just so nice to see everybody. And the biggest thing that I took away from it was that everything is so, once again, extreme in your 20s. And, like, once you get to your 30s, like we have, you're like, it wasn't that serious. No, everything was fine.
Relax.
And, like, sometimes I almost, like, future nostalgia myself. Because I'm like, when I'm 40, I'm gonna be like, remember when you were worried and, like, doing all these things, and, like, you should just chilled. Like, I look forward to being the next decade.
The future you. Yeah, exactly.
So I can look back at me now and be like, remember when you were so stressed? Yeah. For what?
No, I totally agree.
Oh my gosh.
I love that.
It was nice to read this book and, like, feel that other people could feel that as well.
And being, like, with your friends a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel like it was... like, hanging out with your friends.
It really was, like, hanging out with your friends. Yeah.
Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I hope you liked it.
I really did. I honestly just felt like we were just chatting.
Yeah. About the book.
I'm a big yapper, so I really hope that I didn't yap too much.
No, that's the point. It's a podcast. People want to hear you yap, actually. On the contrary. Like, gosh. Please yap. Yeah.
Keep yapping.
Keep talking. The more you yap, the better. And then that's it.
That's amazing.
Thank you for listening, and tune in for the next episode in 2 weeks.
I can't wait.